What's up, buddies? Welcome back to Data Driven MQB. I'm about 1 year in on diving deep into the MK7 PCV system. July of 2023 was when I encountered major issues on track with my stock PCV valve. This has led me down this giant rabbit hole and why you're probably watching right now. This video is particularly important for any 2015 and 16 model year owners, as I've been in contact with several of you guys and there seems to be a trend of those years being more problematic than the rest. First, let's have a quick review on this Volkswagen SSP on which all prior research was originally based. As a reminder, this blue path right here is where your vacuum source comes to the PCV valve, which pulls on the crankcase at idle and low load. The turbo inlet pipe is your vacuum source under wide open throttle. This red passage right here goes down to the crankcase. There is no vacuum pulled directly on the cam cover per this documentation. That will be important. And then this yellow passage here is just a drain back for the air oil separator to the oil pan. For the sake of discussion, I want to break down the original MK7 valves into two main types. I'm going to call them Type 1 and Type 2. Type 1 we will call those that follow the SSP diagram on the prior page. These valves have nothing sticking out from the bottom of them. There is no check valve inside of this opening, and it pulls 100% vacuum through this engine block passageway. This little hole right here goes to nothing. It's just part of the manufacturing process. All of these valves are original to 2019 and up GTIs and Golf Rs. These Type 2 valves are particularly interesting because they do not follow the SSP diagram whatsoever. They have this large opening that extends into the cam cover where it pulls vacuum on, and there is a check valve just inside of here. I've gone over this in a prior video. I'll link it above right now. But these valves are original on all 2015 to 2018 vehicles. The AH revision was original to 15 and 16 GTIs, which was later superseded to this AP valve. And that AP valve was original on 2017 and 2018 model years as well. The 18 Golf R had an AT valve stock, and it is now revised to BM. And the 15 to 17 Golf R, that I'm not as familiar with the original PCVs, but every one of the 15 to 18 cars are now a BM revision PCV valve. So based on actually tearing open the valves myself, we can see that there is no notable amount of vacuum being pulled on this passageway here, but it is basically being pulled all through that little protrusion on the 15 to 18 vehicles. So looking at these PCV valves on a per year basis, we can see that we've got the Type 2 valves in red and the Type 1 valves in blue for the GTI, and same thing for the Golf R. Anything that has been revised has been highlighted. It's important to note that Volkswagen does not go from one type of valve to the other. They stay the same style. What is interesting is the oil baffle for 2015 and 2016 GTIs ends in P, but 2017 and up ends in Q. The Golf R has the P baffle for all years regardless of style of PCV. And both of these numbers exist in the parts catalog. If you have a 2016, it's going to come back with needing a P revision. If you have a 2017, it's going to come back needing a Q revision. They have not superseded one or the other. So I wanted to share some feedback I've gotten and basically break it down by model year. 15 and 16 model years, mostly the GTIs, seem to be a little more likely to have issues than other model years. Some people tracking the 15 and 16 model years have still had issues with the full retrofit. Some people running big turbos on the street have still been able to cause a smoke cloud even on the full retrofit. And then on the other hand, the 2023 SCCA STH National Champ has been running a basic retrofit with zero issues. It is worth noting that he has the OEM turbo inlet pipe as well. 2017 and 18 model years, I'll just recommend proceed with optimistic caution. I don't recall any that have had issues, but based on the PCV designs of 15 to 18 versus 19 plus, I would like to see a larger sample size before making the call. I know of at least two GTIs, one being IS-20, one IS-38, that are being tracked and autocrossed hard and successfully. And this might be due to the revised pan baffle, which affects GTIs and 1.8s only. There's also a 2017 IS-20 Sport Wagon and a 2018 IS-38 Sport Wagon that are being successfully autocrossed and tracked on full retrofits as well. I do think that the 2019 to 21 has the highest probability of success. That is primarily because that is what all of my own testing is being done on. And I do know of at least 2 2019 Golf Rs that have had the full retrofit done and they're successfully being used on track. The Mark 8 valve is also most closely related to the Mark 7 BK or BL valves. So that means we're not altering the vacuum paths and it's not anything fundamentally different. So why can a 2015 to 18 valve still get smoke if it's not pulling directly on the bottom end pathway? That's a good question. Anecdotally, I've observed that the 17 and 18 model year GTIs tend to have a better success rate with the Mark 7 BL PCV valves. So perhaps it truly is a blow-by issue on the 2015 and 16 cars, or maybe the oil baffle is just that bad when used in combination on the 15 and 16 GTIs. Maybe the 15 and 16 cars are more likely to have valve seal failure, and this is the symptom. There's also the fact that we now know turbo inlet pipes can compromise PCV operation, so perhaps those on AP valves with problems have aftermarket turbo inlet pipes which allowed positive pressure, which will still potentially force a mass of oil through the opening and overwhelm the air oil separator. If you have a 2015 to 18 Golf R and you have tracked or autocrossed it, I would love to know what has or hasn't worked for you in the comments. Please include what turbo inlet pipe you're running as well. So fortunately for me, unfortunately for the owner, I do have a local case for further understanding and testing on this car. It's a 2015 GTI with DSG, has 130,000 miles on it. He equipped it with the Mark 8 full retrofit and the car still smokes just like it was on the original Mark 7 valve. We have gotten together and I did verify proper install, proper vacuum readings on the street with my oil cap adapter and a physical gauge. His car compression tested fine at 182 to 188 across all the cylinders. The biggest question mark is valve seals, which is going to require further teardown to verify, but in the meantime, I'm entertaining the idea of potentially modifying the Mark 8 valve. To understand how it works in stock form or, as it comes, air comes up through the blow-by passage, goes over, goes down, it goes underneath the bypass valve and out into the air oil separator right here. Then it leaves the air oil separator, comes down here. Ignore these holes, that's from a past experiment. Goes under that little area here, up and to the bottom of the diaphragm, and then down through the diaphragm where it gets sucked out of whichever the current vacuum source is. To be clear, I am not recommending anybody try this just yet, but essentially what I've done is I've cut a hole out in the bottom of the valve. This is before the air oil separator, so that means it will be sucking on both the blow-by passage and the cam cover. The idea behind this modification is like cutting a hole in the side of a straw while you're trying to suck up liquid. The problem is we don't want to suck up the liquid, so hopefully putting a slit in there where it can suck air instead of liquid will help it to keep all of that oil in the bottom end. The intent of this modification is that by not just pulling on the blow-by passage, but also pulling on the cam cover, we are equalizing the pressure between the cylinder head and this passageway, meaning with equal pressure, oil is not going to go upwards. Even if oil covers the bottom end here, it should not be forced straight up here like it currently is. The biggest question remains is if enough volume of oil mist and everything will come in through here that, one, will the air oil separator be overwhelmed, and two, will it do a good enough job separating out the oil? Now I know how everybody in the Mark 7 world loves their freaking catch cans, so I've been testing this Jack Spania Racing catch can from eBay. It was like 130 bucks. It's a knockoff of the BMS as best as I can tell. What's nice is with the full retrofit, it attaches, here's the Venturi hose. It has an adapter right here that goes into the Tiguan hose, so there's no cutting of the factory parts. I used a 3/4 heater hose from the local parts store because the one that comes with the kit is super stiff and a pain in the ass to work with. Then I have this adapted to the turbo inlet pipe using the original Mark 7 PCV hose to the tube that came with the kit, because it really didn't fit quite right how it should be. But anyways, I've been playing around with this for a little while, and I've run it on track all this year and autocross, and this is the most oil that I ever get out of it. This is after 200 miles at VIR. That's the same can all dumped out. One car I've kept an eye on is owned by a guy named John. He tracks his 2015 Audi A3. It is IS20 Stage 2 EQT tuned, has the MK8 Retrofit with the same catch can setup that I do. And his can fills up within about 2 laps on track, about halfway. So something is vastly different between his car and my car. So that begs the question, is it engine problems, or does the 2015, that car just have more blow-by naturally? That is to be determined. Now, I recently had the first recorded positive pressure event on my crankcase with the MK8 full retrofit, and I caught it in the data. It takes absolutely nailing hog pen at VIR right here to duplicate it. This happened with zero smoke and no noticeable power loss for what it's worth. This video is getting a bit long, so we will look at this oil surge phenomenon in its own video pretty soon. For a quick preview, the oil sloshes and seals off the bottom end from the vacuum source up top. So pressure in the crankcase right here goes up as blow-by builds. Once oil clears, the PCV vacuum gets depleted right there as pressure builds up and goes from the bottom to the top. You may notice I get a few small instances of knock. I believe this may be due to the high oil temps causing oil vapors to go right through the catch can and still making their way into the PCV. My hope is that with the modified valve, I will not be able to duplicate this again.